instead of just having a feed through a filter mechanism of the field, we at development now have a direct link out to the field. We can hear what our customers are saying, we can hear what they're saying about the product set, how we may need to change the product set, enhancements, features that are being utilised. So that gives a very good side for us. Also, we find our customers, while they love our local field team, they also want to hear development, and they want to hear what's going on with the product and where we're taking it and where we're thinking of taking it. So the concept of having people who are plugged directly into the development teams, they're not part of the sales team, they're not part of consulting or any of those groups, was very important. And so that was it was an initiative that's just been taken up in both Europe and in Asia Pacific, or Japan and Asia Pacific, and I'm fortunate enough to have been selected to lead that team, and hence this is the first trip to Pakistan, but one of hopefully many into the future, to get this feedback from the customers and to also feed out to the customers our strategy and our directions. Every market is different, and if you look at it, particularly in the finance and the HR space, you get less of it in the core areas, the manufacturing spaces, those sorts of areas. But obviously, if you look at it within country by country, you have legislation, you have regulation, you have translation. The three big issues, and trying to make sure that your product fits and matches those requirements as a global player is very difficult. It's very easy to be a niche player in a country and have a product that's designed and works for that country. To have a product set that works across the world is something that is far more difficult. And we all know that our governments do a great job of standing up on stage with their budgets, but someone's then got to put that into a product set very quickly after a budget's announced, and enable corporations to do payroll correctly. Easiest way to get people upset is not pay correctly, those sorts of things. So translation and the regulation side is a really important part of the moment we release being as quick as possible afterwards to catch up, or the moment an announcement is made within a country to catch up with that functionality, because our customers have to have it. They're bound to it. Well, because there's still a take-up. So you've had a little bit of a quiet period, obviously, where people were consolidating and considering the impacts of the world and where things are happening. And you've also got take-up by region and by country. So you see countries that have already invested heavily in the areas of applications are now taking up the next generation of applications, talent management and those sorts of areas. In the emerging markets, they've put in ERP and they're saying, well, where do I go to next? What is my next market play, or my next play in the IT space? And so we're seeing trending occur in the areas based on those sorts of things. So we're seeing things like governance and risk and compliance become quite important items. People that have got core systems of ERP and financials in. You'll see the next wave of CRM come through, of course, as well. And then you'll look at those extraneous products, or not really extraneous, but the extended product sets, which start to make companies more efficient and effective. But you've got to balance that off against, well, what's a software implementation cost versus labour in some areas? And that becomes a trade-off for companies. So it's an emergence, it's a hierarchical structure almost that you see in software that occurs. So finance, what you're finding in the finance market is a lot of the finance organisations had old bespoke systems that they'd put in, particularly in their core financials, beyond just the horizontal sections. So our recent acquisitions in that space have meant that we're able to go in with more modern, modular, open standard solutions that we can build out for those customers. So we're finding a lot of the finance group saying, we've been bound, we've been caught up with proprietary software in the past, it's time to start to break that out and loosen it up a bit. In the manufacturing space, in the past we have very much very tightly bound ERP. The customers said, I want this, and so we spent a lot of time going in and building them what they wanted. What we're seeing now is they want modular. You know, they've got an ERP, they don't want to throw it out, they don't want a massive transformation program, it's too costly, but they want to add on functionality. So moving forward, I see a lot of drive to, here's my core ERP, I'll keep it tracking, but I just now want to take on and expand, because an area of my business is hurting. I'm not getting the productivity out of an area. And so hence a lot of our work has been looking at that as well, how to get those modular sides for, as I said, but it's not just manufacturing for the modularity approach, but it is, you know, there's such an investment in supply chain in those areas. The emerging markets are in a better position really in that space because they haven't had that massive investment and they haven't gone through some of the trauma of putting in a heavily customized solution that really holds them back and holds them from expanding. So into the future, I think the ability to go with some of those more modular and more agile solutions will be an advantage for some of these areas. The old world was great. They looked at customization and they looked at proprietary software because that was what was offered. I mean, if you look at it, COBOL was laid down in 1959. Those sorts of things that we've got to look at. So we've got to turn around and we've got to take on board some of these areas where we look at no customization into the product set. So new advanced open standards, the directions of that, and we want to make sure that people go in with a more packaged solution for the majority of their business. There'll be areas that they'll need to focus on and that they need to work on, and that's okay, but there'll be other areas where it fits and it works the same as it does in other organisations, so no need to change. I think it's happening right across. What happens is it sits at the C-level, and it's very much a C-level view and a C-level concern. My trailing cost of my implementation, customisation, those sorts of things. Getting it down out into the field is where the concern is, because you've done something a certain way for many, many years. And so to try and change business process rather than system, in the past we tried to change system to make business process, and I think people are seeing the trailing cost of that is quite high. So there's a quite a strong desire now to say, if it does the job, let's change the way we do our business, and that's where the pushback, because that's a difficult thing. That's quite a difficult thing to change process rather than system. Every customer that I talk to is looking at expansion, they're looking at growth, whether it's there through internal or whether it's through acquisitions. They're looking at how do they take on advantage of an emerging marketplace. So they're looking at the places where they see the bang, where they're going to see the value, and again, that will be by market, by maturity. They've implemented a certain amount of product set, and now they're looking at something beyond that. CRM, some of those product sets we see as trending, particularly in the APAC area, as being as an emerging area for us and for all of the marketplace. And we also see obviously the overall trending of software as a service. The drive and the desire for customers to say, I don't actually want to own this necessarily, I want to have it as a service to me because it's not my core business and I want to do it through a different side. So it's not just product set, it's also adoption technologies and methodologies that people are changing now. Look, every market's challenging, to be honest. It has their own challenges. I wouldn't say they're challenging. They have their own challenges and they have their own differences. And so, again, for a global organisation, it's that ability to understand each market. If you try to treat each market at a top level as a common entity, and even APAC with the amount of disparate organisations and countries you've got here, you can't treat an area and an industry as a general approach. So it's sort of one of those where you look at it and you say, here in Pakistan we have 1,100 customers here. We've got a very strong base in the financial sector and in the telco sector. And that's really good for us. For us, we can see where they're going and what they're doing. Then we see the emerging markets and the emerging areas. We see a lot of work in the small and medium enterprise space that we want to work in as well. There's a lot of movement there. And that's a really exciting place because you've got to address it in a different way to how you address the big end of town. But you've also got to address it such that it can grow, because all of those want to be the next big company and they want to have, industrial strength ERP sitting in underneath them. So there's a lot of challenges and a lot of different approaches. So I'm not avoiding the question, it's just it's a complex issue, as you'd be well aware. So if we look at our Applications Unlimited approach, it was an interesting approach that we brought in a few years ago. We realised our customers were feeling pressured. We had all these acquisitions, and they were saying, well, where do we go? What do we do? And our whole premise now, as I said, is to drive out customizations, to get things in and have them as nimble and able to be modular as we can. So we had a couple of fundamentals that we approached. One was our support strategies. So we announced our support strategies such that we provided certainty for customers to stay on the versions they're on. We also then started to provide continuous innovation in our product sets, regardless of the fact that we've been out working on a next generation ERP system with the Fusion application. So if we look at it at the area of Applications Unlimited, that allowed customers to say, I don't have to wait, I can see functionality in my existing product set that I'm on, I can upgrade, I can take the latest functionality, the latest capabilities, and I can move forward. And I have now a strategic approach. And again, it's a change to how IT works. If we think of the old world, we did an implementation, and for 5 or 6 years we just sat back and we breathed a sigh of relief that it was working. It took a lot of time to get it in, it took a lot of design to get it done. And then we let it sit, and then we waited. What we're seeing now is IT needs to be a business partner. They can't be away from the business area. They need to be moving with them. So that ability to allow items to come in, to take on functionality, to expand and to upgrade as we go along. So that was a key component for us of Applications Unlimited, was the ability to continually release updates to our core product sets and allow our customers to see value on a regular basis coming through, and that's resonated, I think, with the customers. And then the whole idea of coexistence, this idea of modularity and taking some of the modules on as we bought new product sets and allowed them to coexist. And it's been an interesting but very broad strategy that we're finding out in the feedback from our customers is very positive. We're giving them length of time on their current installation. They're worried about that because to approach an upgrade from a release to the next release, it's not a small business. It takes a bit of time, and customers get concerned about that, and there's a natural reluctance to move forward. What we're showing them is you can stay where you're at because we've got a new support policy that shows you that you're covered there, and that we'll continue to look after you for things like you talked about, legislation, those sorts of things. And you know, we'll carry that through, but we'll also innovate on that release into the future releases, such that staying on that path of that product set and moving forward is a positive. There's a value add for your organisation because we're innovating on the JD Edwards platform, we're innovating on the Siebel platform, we're innovating on the PeopleSoft platform and the Business Suite platform, and we're continuing that innovation. So customers are sort of saying, should I wait? No, there's value there now to move forward. If you can get the customer to understand, first and foremost, if the product works in so many customers around the world in the form that it's at, don't change it. Put it in the way it is now. So therefore you're not paying high overheads to get it to work the way you want it to work. You're getting it to work the way the world has it working. And I hear a lot of talk about best practice and things like that. And that's good where it makes money for you or it reduces cost for you. Where it's standard, in my finance department or places like that where, you know, the standard functions are the standard functions, don't go and change those. Don't go into massive customization programs and change programs to the software. You know, if it does the job, please let it do the job. That'll drive your cost down now on implementation, it'll drive your cost down into the future on maintenance, and it will allow you to uptake new functionality in the areas that you need. Too many times we spend too much money up the front end of our program. It has a trailing cost for us that we didn't see, and it carries through and takes out of our IT budget. And we find then we're stuck with half a system and we can't afford to take that next roll through. So I said my word to any IT professional is go to open standards, go to non-customized solutions, go to standard process where you can, and change your business to the software rather than the software to the business.